It's Cartoon Hangout, whoa, with Archaic King as your host. It's time to review some great cartoons, from Craig of the Creek to Scooby-Doo. Hello, lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon.
Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoons. Today I finally got to watch the premiere of Be Cool Scooby-Doo, and I've got to say I think people were worried for nothing. The art style may not match what people think of when they picture Scooby-Doo, but this show is still very pretty to look at, from the fluid animation to the use of CG in certain parts of the episode. As for the characters, they're all on point with how you expect the characters to act from previous series. The only real difference is Daphne and her use of puppets. For the promo, I thought it was a little odd, but it works within the episode itself. It might get old for some people, but so long as the show uses it sparingly, I'm okay with it. In Mystery Incorporated, Fred is shown being obsessed with traps, and while so far that doesn't seem to be the case in Be Cool Scooby-Doo, he still retains that level of know-how, specifically when he Daphne-proofed the van.
Like, are puppets stealing the mystery machine?
Daphne?
I thought you Daphne-proofed the mystery machine.
It's under control.
And then created camouflage for the mystery van when they snuck into the university late at night.
The best security is looking like you don't need any.
Velma doesn't seem to have changed much at all, besides the new voice actors, but she does have what I have dubbed Batgirl vision. While in the library hunting down a clue, there's this really nice visual of various numbers and information flying around her. This eventually leads to her finding out what the numbers they'd found written on a sticky note meant by using the Dewey Decimal System. I hope this is used in future episodes because it adds a nice visual flair to Velma figuring out the mystery. Of course, the characters who really haven't changed at all would be Scooby and his pal Shaggy. They're still just as easily scared and prone to wanting to flee from danger, as seen here.
I have seen a lot of snooty kids running away with their tails between their legs.
Huh, yeah, cowards. So now, exactly which direction did they run?
Their love of food is also there, even to the point of a really funny moment when they get trapped in a vending machine along with the monster.
Maybe if I just... got it! That's it, Scoob!
I know it's been ages since I watched the older series, but this definitely seems to keep in line with that tradition. The episode itself revolves around Velma wanting to get into college, namely Kingston University. If that name sounds familiar to veteran Scooby-Doo fans, that's because that is the name of the so-called ghost of Elias Kingston, a villain who made his appearance in the original 1969 series. The gang, of course, as always, sets out to unmask this ghost, who is scaring off prospective students. Because this show is a reimagining of the 1969 series, the villain is not Stuart Weatherby, but actually Mitchell, with help from his dad, the head of security. I found this episode to be highly entertaining. It had some of the funniest moments I've ever seen in a Scooby-Doo cartoon. That's not to say the older stuff wasn't funny, but this episode had me laughing quite a few times at Daphne's puppets.
Okay, let's split up and look for clues. Velma, Daphne, and I will search Dean Longfellow's office. I have a feeling there's more going on there than he told us.
Or even Scooby-Doo in Shaggy's antics. Not to mention the recurring tactics joke said by Joe. If you were scared to death that Cartoon Network was going to ruin the Scooby-Doo franchise, then let me assure you, they have not. While this certainly isn't your parent Scooby-Doo, the essence of what makes this show so great is still present. This episode gets a
Tactics
out of 10. If you haven't watched this episode yourself, Cartoon Network is airing new episodes all this week, and of course, yours truly will be reviewing them all. That's my review. Let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments section below, and please think about leaving a like behind. Thanks for watching. Take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout for another Be Cool Scooby-Doo review. I'm glad so many of you watched and enjoyed my review of episode 1. It may not have looked like it, but I did work hard on that video, as you only get one chance at a first impression. So as I said in the previous video, new episodes are airing every day this week, which unfortunately for me means a lot of work for me. But enough about that, let's talk about episode 2, Game of Chicken. We're treated right off the bat with a reimagining of another case from the 1969 series, namely the one with Cutler. I actually liked how the episode began with the gang already having solved the case. I liked even more when they were extremely bored with Cutler's plan. Even the cops were bored. This episode's actual plot had to do with Fred coming to his friend Chuck's rescue as he had been captured by, well, the Chicken Warrior while exploring the Zatari caves. I suppose he's technically the Zatari Warrior. I don't believe he's an actual villain from the 1969 series, but he does bear a slight resemblance to several classic Scooby-Doo villains like Medicine Man Ghost, Indian Witch Doctor, and Witch Doctor. If only for the very large, tiki-esque mask he wears. Although, honestly, it resembles more of a chicken, hence Chicken Warrior being his monster name, but I guess you can't always get the cool names. Remember how Daphne was obsessed with puppets last episode? While I theorized that would be her shtick in this series, I was actually wrong. Turns out her shtick is having a new shtick each episode. In Game of Chicken, she narrates the gang's adventures the entire episode.
Thus our intrepid explorers march once more into the mouth of danger. A chicken-shaped mouth, which is called a beak, so technically they are walking into the beak of danger.
Much like the puppets, the show's writers don't have her do it so often it becomes old. It does, however, annoy her friends. If this is how Daphne is going to operate in Be Cool Scooby-Doo, then I'm excited to see what she does next episode. As I may have mentioned in my review of last episode, the humor in this new iteration of Scooby-Doo is much more overt and obvious than what I remember of past series. That level of comedy is on full display in this episode as well. Replacing the recurring tactics joke from episode 1 is the supposed mispronunciation of the character Rick's name, the last of the Zatari warriors the gang meet in the caves.
Ready? It's Rick.
Rick.
No. Rick.
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 Well, it does get a bit old by the time the episode ends, especially when he has him slowly sounded out during their meeting. It was still a solid joke in my opinion. Something of a subplot in this episode was a feud between Shaggy and Scooby caused when Shaggy refers to Scooby as his dog. What followed was Scooby attempting to replace Shaggy with the rest of the gang. The best moment of this particular subplot was his interactions with Daphne.
Stim, everybody, quiet. Shh. Our best bet is to go silent until the coast is clear.
In the end, the monster is revealed to actually be Fred's friend Chuck, who needed Fred's smarts to get to the Zatari cave treasure, which, by the way, turned out to be Rick's chicken Larry. Something to note is Chuck's use of glow sticks to light up his disguise. I point this out because during the episode, the gang end up discovering some that had leaked out when Daphne stepped on one. The use of a glowing substance was also something Chuck had in common with Captain Cutler, the villain who made a brief appearance towards the beginning of this episode. Just a cool little reference I found. While not as good as the premiere episode, Game of Chicken was still a very decent episode. It may not have had the best of villains. I mean, come on, Chicken Warrior. But the humor was on point this entire episode. Let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for another Cartoon Hangout review. Take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout for another Be Cool Scooby-Doo review. Because Cartoon Network just hates me. I mean seriously, there's 3 more episodes to review this week on top of my Powerpuff Girls flashback review. But enough of me complaining, let's get to today's episode, all paws on deck. Today's episode had the gang boarding the SS Casey, which belonged to Fred's cousin Scott. It doesn't take them long to find out that the route the ship takes is infested with sea monsters, much to Velma's dismay, who we now learn is afraid of water. All in all, a much more understandable fear than width. Looking at you, Fred.
Right. This coming from the guy who's afraid of widths.
It's hardly the same. The human body is 60% water. We're practically made of it. But how wide are we, huh? Not very.
The monster in this episode appears to be at least somewhat reminiscent of the Beast of Bottomless Lake, or Fish Fiend. Whether or not it's meant to be a reimagining of one of those is unclear. It could just be a generic sea monster. Or I could also just be getting too distracted by the concept. Another thing we learned this episode is that Daphne has a beef with dolphins. Yep, you heard and read that right. Daphne has a beef with dolphins. By the end of the episode, we discover it's because she owed them $15. What would they even need with money? As I pointed out in yesterday's video, this version of Daphne seems to be very eccentric. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I'm loving it. Speaking of Daphne, I wonder if we'll ever see any romantic moments with her and Fred. Mr. Incorporated wasn't the first time this idea was approached. I think I specifically remember them touching on their feelings for each other in the early to mid-2000s Scooby-Doo movies, such as Cyber Chase or Zombie Island. With Daphne's feud with dolphins resolved, the dolphins end up lending the gang a hand when they are attacked by one of the sea creatures, because there turns out to be two. This time the mystery of who the monsters were was pretty easy, at least in hindsight. The diving instructors Thorn and Dahlia were using the ship's exclusive route to steal the treasure from the ocean floor. With the shoddy help of Velma and her claw, the villains were captured and the gang could return to their cruise. I'll admit, I was a little bit disappointed this episode didn't feature a classic monster like the previous two. I don't have a thing against new monsters, although generic sea monsters isn't exactly groundbreaking, but I like the idea of the classic monsters being reimagined. Still, this was far from a terrible episode, and besides Velma's fear of water wearing a bit thin by episode's end, it still featured plenty of standout moments, such as Scott's devolution from a salty sea dog,
Feeling like a great burden has been lifted off my shoulders.
or Scooby and Shaggy facing a great challenge from the ship's cooks.
Bring it in, boys.
Let's do this.
Whoa.
Another thing worth pointing out that I meant to mention before was the return of chase music featuring actual lyrics. In episode 1 and 2, the chase music was just instrumental, and while that's fine and all, Scooby-Doo chase music is just, it's not the same without the lyrics. Maybe in the future I'll compile my top 10 chase music scenes from Scooby-Doo, but I don't think now's the time. That's my review. Let me know what you thought of this episode and this review in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for more Cartoon Hangout and more Be Cool Scooby-Doo. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. Another day, another Be Cool Scooby-Doo review. Last night's episode was Poodle Justice, and featured the gang arriving on a movie set to help out with their gargoyle troubles. This episode pretty much confirmed my theory on Daphne, who seems to be the random humor character of the bunch, from her use of puppets to her sporting a fake beard for much of this new episode. Poor Fred, though. He just couldn't even, as the kids say.
Daphne?
Let it go. Trust me.
But
Fred, don't do it.
she's wearing a...
Shh. Nope.
But what about...
No. Trust me.
It also has Scooby developing a cute crush on the poodle actress Belle. Of course, this wouldn't be the first time Scooby had a thing for another dog. There was Nova in Mr. Incorporated, Amber from the movie Alien Invasion, his cousin Scooby-D, and the list goes on. Sadly for Scooby-Doo, and much like me, he was too scared to even talk to her. Even when he managed to work up the nerve, he ended up a complete mess. It wasn't until he saved her life that he managed to say something coherent to her. And of course, it was a James Bond reference.
Do, Scooby-Doo.
You go Scooby-Doo. Oh wait, I meant do. Scooby-Doo. I'm hoping to see more moments where Scooby-Doo woos the ladies. All our other heroes have gotten their chances in the romance spotlight, albeit not this certain series, but Scooby-Doo has only had a few minor ones. The monster for this episode was a gargoyle. Now there's been at least 3 different gargoyle monsters that the Scooby Gang has faced over the years. One appearing in the new Scooby-Doo movies, the Gargoyle of Notre Dame from What's New Scooby-Doo, and the last being from a Scooby-Doo comic book. To be honest, the one in this episode bears a closer resemblance to the Gargoyle of Notre Dame, but it could honestly be a reimagining of any of them. While we're talking about monsters, it was pointed out to me in the episode 3 review that the sea monster was in fact the beast from Bottomless Lake. If that's true, I think I can be forgiven for not realizing that, since, well, there was no lake. Now, I enjoyed this episode, mostly for its atmosphere. I just really love the use of the gothic building the episode took place in, and it's creepy but still normal tenants. For some reason, the whole thing reminded me of an episode of A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, even though this series isn't really similar to that one. I think it was just really that one tenant who kept laughing evilly, even when ordering pizza. Towards the end of the episode, I had begun to suspect that the gargoyle was the human actress, whose name I've seemed to have forgotten. She hated the show and felt it was degrading, but in the end it was Carly the assistant, which also, of course, makes sense. She never got the credit she deserved. I was amused when she admitted that her shot of getting away with it was very slim. Something I hadn't noticed until I was doing research on possible related monsters to the gargoyle was that this series hasn't introduced Scooby Snacks yet. What the heck? It's not a really big deal, mind you, but I can't believe I didn't notice before. I suppose we're only 4 episodes in, but that's still a pretty iconic part of the franchise to leave out. This was another good episode, but if I had to rank them, it would be episode 1, episode 4, then episode 3 and 2. It's not that episode 2 or 3 were bad, but I just wasn't really feeling Chicken Warrior or the Sea Monster that much as villains. Speaking of monsters, I tacked on an annotation in my episode 1 review, but I want to ask in this video, what classic monsters would you like to see return in this new series? Personally, I would love to see Black Knight, Space Kook, and Tar Monster. Also, while they're not monsters, I'd love to see the Hex Girls make an appearance. When I was a kid, I had a huge crush on the lead singer, Thorn. I do have more to say about her and the Hex Girls, but I'll save that for its own video. In the meantime, why don't you lords and ladies tell me what you thought of this episode? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in 30 minutes for another flashback review of the Powerpuff Girls. Thanks for watching. Take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout. I just finished watching last night's Be Cool Scooby-Doo episode, Grand Scam. Right off the bat, baseball pun, I was reminded of a What's New Scooby-Doo episode, The Unnatural, which also involved a ghost baseball player, as well as the ghost of Casey O'Reilly from the new Scooby and Scrappy-Doo show. Obviously, with such a long franchise as Scooby-Doo, some episodes will resemble others. I'm not sure you could say this episode's villain is a reimagining of any particular baseball player ghost, though. I'm sure someone will correct me. Anyway, as you might have guessed already, this episode revolves around baseball. Specifically, a baseball team called the Gypsy Moths, whose owner is having to sell his team and stadium because the ghost of Chip Braverton is scaring away the fans.
Oh, Kramer was pointing to a ghost. Run for your life!
This episode is interesting because despite being a complete coward most of the time, Shaggy steps up to the plate and decides to save his favorite childhood team. It's a nice bit of character development for Shaggy, although it undoubtedly will not last past this episode. He actually has some very nice moments of bravery in this episode.
No, Fred, I'll do it.
Come again?
This plan has to work. No one has more experience being the bait than I do. That's what teamwork is all about.
Go Shaggy.
And of course, how can I forget Daphne? Once again, she strikes, and once again Fred is exhausted by her antics.
No one takes mysteries more seriously than we do.
Go team, we'll get that ghost. Something buttered toast.
She's wearing the moth suit, isn't she?
I think this episode actually features some of her more funnier moments, up there alongside the puppets from episode 1. I know there will likely be some fans who dislike her character this time around, but it's actually a nice change of pace. For most of Daphne's history, she's been pretty much one thing, a girl in love with all things fashion, even a bit shallow at times. That started to change as the years went by, and I think it really came to a head in the first live-action Scooby-Doo movie, where she decided to teach herself how to fight. From then on, she was always a bit more three-dimensional, although technically you could make the argument that now she's back to being the airhead. The culprit of this episode was really easy to figure out. As soon as Dustin was introduced in all his forgettable glory, you just knew he was the ghost. I'm not claiming that the typical episode of Scooby-Doo has difficult mysteries to solve or anything, but I am a little bit disappointed how easy this one was. Luckily, the humor of this episode was at its best, especially any moment involving Daphne as the team mascot.
Off to the field. Here we go. Blah, 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 pinky toe. I'm okay.
I'm in for a long night.
That's actually something I enjoy about this new iteration. Instead of Shaggy and Scooby-Doo being the only means of comedic relief, the entire gang is in on the action. Mostly Daphne, though. Now, I'm not much of a baseball fan, but this was a stellar episode. Despite a paper-thin villain, the episode keeps the humor flowing at all times, and even manages to have some emotional moments along the way. This is Scooby-Doo at his finest. That's my review of episode 5. What did you think of the episode? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout for another Be Cool Scooby-Doo review. Last night's episode, entitled Trading Chases, involved Fred switching places with Jeff, a tour guide, to give him a chance at solving a mystery. As you can probably imagine, this doesn't really sit well with Fred over the course of the episode. He even manages to replace the gang with a kid version of them. Although they're not really kid versions, Fred just treats them like they are. The gang gets involved because apparently the Egyptian deity Sorbeck is haunting the museum. Honestly, I was hoping being in a museum would get us some cool Scooby-Doo Easter eggs, but that never really happened. Jeff at first is a really competent leader. He listens to the gang and allocates their skill sets surprisingly well. I think this worked out really well because we don't often get to compare Fred's leadership skills with anyone else. We even see how well Jeff's leadership is here.
Alright, gang, like we practice. Evasive maneuvers.
Did Shaggy just vanish like a ninja? What the heck? I think this probably hands down my favorite moment from this episode. The series just has some really wacky humor. Don't worry though, it's nothing close to Teen Titans Go. In the end, one of the Egyptologists is revealed to be the monster. I'm not positive if this monster is new or a reimagined one. The closest monster I could find was the ghost of Gator Ghoul, who first appeared in the Scooby-Doo show. So, maybe? Finally, Jeff turned out to be not so sane.
It all came together when the Falcon found the mouse in the storeroom. This revealed that Sobek was clearly trying to stop the wind. All wind. Forever.
Looks like Fred really is the best leader. Although it was touch and go there for a while. Also, we finally got the characters to really acknowledge Daphne's antics in this episode.
And Daphne, do you have some irrational thing you're doing today for no apparent reason?
No. I've taken up falconry.
They said it! All in all, it was a decent episode. That's been my really short review of the latest episode of Be Cool Scooby-Doo, but that's because I'm really sleep deprived. Let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments below, and I'll see you soon for more Cartoon Hangout. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout for my review of the most recent episode of Be Cool Scooby-Doo, which is several days late, I'm sorry. If you missed today's previous Cartoon Hangout video, I explained that I was in danger of going over my internet allowance, and they charge you for that, and I couldn't have that. But anyway, on to the episode Be Quiet Scooby-Doo. The episode features a gang stopping at the Crystal Canopy, a tourist hotspot that features some incredibly beautiful crystals. I think it's just because of the use of crystals in the name that this reminded me of Crystal Cove, the home of Scooby and the gang in the previous iteration of Scooby-Doo. I doubt there's any connection besides crystal being in the name. The gang decide to solve what is scaring away the scientists researching the crystals, and who this crystal crawler really is. Now, as far as I'm aware, the crystal crawler isn't a reimagining of any past monster, so I'm going to go out on a limb and claim this is a new monster. As always, feel free to make me put up an annotation when I'm eventually proven wrong. The fun idea behind this episode is that the crystals are insanely sensitive to noise, so you can't even whisper.
Darren, what is wrong with you? The crystals react to sound, even whispering.
You're whispering?
I'm whispering to tell you not to whisper.
It's still whispering.
At first, I thought the gang would have to be completely silent, and we'd get no dialogue. But of course, that isn't the case. This is Be Cool Scooby-Doo after all. They'll think everything in their heads. Unfortunately for Fred, the gang never listened to his explanation of hand signs, so their first trip down into the caves was very aggravating. To him, at least. Daphne's shtick this time around didn't really seem like much, namely her obsession with believing she has psychic powers. Unlike her previous ones, I didn't really dig this one. It's not that I necessarily hated it, no, but it got old pretty fast. Honestly, it seemed that in this episode, Velma was the one channeling her inner Daphne, as she completely went crazy trying to protect the crystals from her friends. Of course, her attempts at being the crystal crawler were lackluster, and even Daphne's psychic powers couldn't detect what Velma was trying to do. Right, Daphne? Right. In the end, the monster turned out to be Coulson McCready, the man who first discovered the caves and opened the tour. That actually surprised me, as up until that point, everything seemed to point to Velma's old professor, Dr. Lang, who wanted people to do not go into the caves in order to protect the crystals. This was an okay episode, in my opinion. The entire idea behind forcing the gang to work together without speaking was interesting. Unlike previous episodes, though, some of the jokes this time around either weren't all that funny, or they just went on too long. The whole right, left, wrong joke in the beginning of this episode was an example of the latter. I mean, I get the idea behind the joke. It's sort of like the who's on first joke. Just a little less funny because of how long it drags on. That's about the only negative thing I'm going to say about the episode. On the positive side of things, Velma almost seemingly getting high off the crystals was easily one of the highlights of this episode. Velma is usually a lot more collected, and to see her just, well, lose it was hilarious. Another point in the positive column was the chase soundtrack. The chase music in Scooby-Doo rarely seems to fit what's going on in that episode, but that doesn't mean it's not pleasant to listen to. If you have the app Shazam, you should definitely see what song that was. I suppose I could just tell you what song that was, but nah. Before we wrap up this video, it is worth noting that Scooby-Doo says his iconic catchphrase for the first time in this series.
Scooby-Dooby Do?
That took longer than I expected. Anyway, that's been my review of episode 7. Did you like it more than I did? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow as I try to catch up with these late reviews. Take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout. I almost panicked when I went to watch this new episode and couldn't find it on my DVR, or on the site that I usually catch up on cartoons. For some reason, Cartoon Network recorded We Bare Bears instead of Scooby-Doo. Luckily, I managed to find it on Cartoon Network's website. Now, last night's episode, titled Let's Party Like It's 1899, revolved around the gang going to a monster mystery party that Daphne was invited to. As fans will all know, Daphne comes from a rich family, but this is the first time that's brought up in this new series. Speaking of firsts, it's also the first time we learn Shaggy's real name in this cartoon. This episode had a pretty cool setup. The pretend monster is meant to be the Headless Count. That's also who the actual monster was as well. So while everyone thinks the monster is part of the game, he's actually going around kidnapping people. The Headless Count is most likely a reimagining of the Headless Spectre, who first appeared in the Scooby-Doo Where Are You episode Haunted House Hang-Up. Replace the haunted house with a mystery party and boom! There you go. What's interesting are the roles given to the gang. Fred is the bumbling constable, Daphne is the queen, oh boy is she, Velma is a maid, while Scooby-Doo and Shaggy are Lady Bethabeth and a chimney sweeper respectively. In a complete reversal of roles, Scooby and Shaggy are the ones who solve the fake mystery, revealing that when there's no danger, they actually make great mystery solvers. Although, to be fair, Velma solved it, too, as well as the identity of the actual Headless Count. Now, this one was pretty obvious from the beginning, at least to me. The Headless Count turned out to be Daphne's childhood friend, Bradwick, who had been stealing the guests' money because he blew through his own wealth. This also lines up with the Headless Spectre's plan to steal a treasure in the original 1969 series. Now, I had a blast watching this episode. It was filled to the brim with funny moments, such as the crazy butler, who kept finding ways to blow a bugle horn despite it being destroyed.
But I had that destroyed!
I am resourceful.
Shaggy and Scooby-Doo were also on their A-game this episode.
Look, I understand you're upset, but instead of taking it out on the chimney sweep, you should fire your barber. I think he went too far.
It was just a downright hilarious episode, and I highly recommend you watch it. That's been my review. Please let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments below, as well as let me know if I missed anything. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout. I'm still just an episode or so behind with my reviews, but hopefully that's okay. I'll catch up soon. These new episodes of Be Cool Scooby-Doo keep getting better and better. I wasn't sure how the show could top Let's Party Like It's $18.99, but Screama Donna did. This time, Fred gets the gang involved with the mystery in his rush to buy tickets for the Bones Malone concert. Why he didn't just, I don't know, order them online, I have no idea. Either way, the ghost of Prima Donna has been haunting the theater, and it's up to Scooby and the gang to get to the bottom of it, by pretending to be an actual band. The funny thing is, Shaggy and Scooby-Doo actually play guitars, and apparently believe the gang was a band.
Like what? Aren't you guys musicians too? I thought I was the lead guitarist in our band. Why else do we drive around in the van everywhere? Right, Scoob?
Scooby-Doo best, baby.
Luckily, Daphne and Fred both knew how to play piano and drums respectively. The only one left was Velma, who would need to sing. They should have just had Daphne sing. We all know she has it in her. As far as I can tell, the monster of this episode isn't a reimagining of another monster, at least not a specific one, because a couple of monsters have had the MO of stopping a concert in past shows, such as the Phantom from Mystery Incorporated. The ghost in the end turned out to be, hilariously, the manager of Bones Malone, Jasper Crawl. He'd considered himself the star because he'd helped Bones get to where he was. I do so love it when the costume the bad guys wear doesn't realistically match up with their bodies. Seriously, that was such a funny thing to watch happen. When I first saw the synopsis for this episode, I prayed that somehow, someway, the Hex Girls would be part of it. Sadly, that wasn't the case, but it was still quite the satisfying episode, with a nice substitute for cute music-related characters. Now I know some of you viewers hate when I comment on the attractiveness, or the cuteness, of fictional characters in these reviews, but Bond was shockingly attractive, for both a cartoon and Scooby-Doo character. And very fashionable, I must say. This was a great episode. It had plenty of great jokes, and the idea of closing out the episode on a song? Brilliant. Simply brilliant. Go watch this episode if you haven't. Also, the chase music was some of the best the series has offered thus far. And that's my review of Screama Donna. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like or comment. I'll see you soon for more Cartoon Hangout. Take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout. I'm still struggling to catch up with some of my reviews, but I'm hoping to knock off several of them today. So let's move on to the review itself. Kitchen Frightmare is the latest episode and revolves around the gang visiting the opening to Shaggy and Scooby's favorite chef's new restaurant. Apparently there could be a cheese-themed restaurant, who knew? Although watching this episode did make me hungry for all manner of cheeses, similar to how being waiters made Scooby and Shaggy hungry too. Unfortunately for Chaz Larkin, the chef, a Yeti has managed to scare away all of his waiters, and unless he gets some much needed help, he'll have to close down the restaurant. I don't know if the Yeti is a reimagining of the Snow Ghost from Scooby-Doo Where Are You, or if it's just a coincidence that they came up with a Yeti. I'm betting on it being a reimagining though. Daphne's hobby in this episode is stand-up comedy, and it was really cringeworthy, but in a good way. At least Fred warms up to her jokes after he starts feeling nostalgic for the beard.
Daphne, you're not trying to do...
Stand-up comedy.
Great. Ugh, I'm already nostalgic for the beard.
I may be wrong, but I believe this is the first time an episode has referenced a past episode. Well, Scooby and Shaggy suffer from wanting to eat the cheese, and Fred has to suffer Daphne's jokes. Poor Velma absolutely loses it for the second time in the series by my count. She becomes so focused on what connection a Yeti could have to a cheese restaurant, and I have to say it was very amusing watching her freak out. I don't normally get to see the side of Velma, so it's as much a treat as fondue is. In the end, the monster turns out to be one of the customers, Jeff Howard, who lived above the restaurant space for years and couldn't stand the noise. This is actually another episode where I didn't see the monster reveal coming. I was pretty focused on one of the employees, but admittedly, he had more screen time, so kudos to the writers for throwing me off that scent. While I wouldn't say it was as good as the last episode, it was still pretty entertaining. We got some very humorous moments from Shaggy and Scooby-Doo, along with Velma's complete meltdown. Oh, and how could I forget the cook, whose name I've seemed to have forgotten, if it's even mentioned at all. He actually has one of the funnier bits in the episode, plus I'm pretty sure that's Bryce Papenbrook doing the voice. If I had to describe how I felt about this episode, it'd probably be with this clip from the episode. I hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, consider leaving a like or a comment. And of course, I'd like to pass along thanks to the team behind this episode. Great work. Thanks for watching. Take care. Hello, lords and ladies. Welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. I somehow managed to miss this episode and almost counted episode 12 as episode 11. Of course, for you viewers, you'll be seeing this review first, so why did I even mention it? Episode 11, entitled Me, Myself, and AI, involved the gang taking a trip to Manputer Tech Industries, where a robot known as Butler 3000 seems to have developed artificial intelligence and attacked people. But kudos to the presenter for being flexible during the malfunction.
The Butler 3000 also helps keep you fit and active. And who doesn't like ominous threats?
As I was watching this episode, I didn't really know who the robot could be until probably the best moment in the episode happened midway. I was shouting with joy when, during the holographic style chasing, the gang transformed back into their original 1969 designs and Butler 3000 turned into Charlie. So thanks, writers. You pretty did my research for me. It definitely saved me time going through every Scooby-Doo villain and trying to find the closest counterpart. Although to be fair, I don't think it would have taken me long to figure out this episode was a reimagining of Scooby-Doo Where Are You episode Foul Play in Funland. Still, I really love the reference. Oh, and the chase music this time around was very fitting in this episode. Interestingly enough, this episode, along with Daphne, seemed to be a theme of not being too dependent on technology. Hilariously enough, by the end of the episode, everyone is happy to point out to Daphne that it wasn't actually technology that was a villain, it was a human. Speaking of humans, the person behind the evil robot was none other than Mr. Man's personal assistant, Mallory. With the Butler 3000 being made, she and other personal assistants would be out of jobs, and she couldn't have that. Now, all in all, I have to say this was a pretty good episode. We actually got to see Daphne a little bit more competent than in previous episodes. That's not to say she's been completely useless, but she certainly lives up to the nickname Danger Prone Daphne.
Evolve beyond this flashlight. Magnifying glass.
In fact, she's actually pretty intelligent in this episode.
We rely on each other to solve our problems. We love each other no matter how broken we get, no matter how many mistakes we make. That's our strength. Love. That's what love is. The more broken you feel, the tighter you get hugged.
We humans are too dependent on technology. Unfortunately for her, technology wasn't really the foe in this episode. It was just a tool used by a very bad person. And that's kind of the lesson in this episode, if you want to consider it one. Technology isn't bad, but it can be used incorrectly if we don't watch out. I find it funny that everyone just ignores poor Techie, an actual artificial intelligence introduced in this episode. He spent much of the episode obsessing over Mallory, so it's odd that no one really paid him all that much attention, as he could have been a real suspect. Anyway, that's been my review of Me, Myself, and AI. What did you think of that? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you soon for more Cartoon Hangout videos. Take care! Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. This review might be up late, because of the time of this writing, my internet is out, so yeah, please excuse any delays. Last night's new episode was Area 51 adjacent, and involves a gang coming upon a crashed alien ship, only to be captured by the US military in probably one of the funniest attempts at being competent.
You are surrounded. I am Colonel. Ow, my eyes!
Sorry, sir. I heard yelling.
Attention! I am Colonel. Ow!
Ugh. Lights on them! My bad.
Normally the monster has already been causing mayhem by the time the Scooby Gang arrive, but this time they managed to get there pretty early. So, a little bit of a change up this episode. Now with monsters like the ghost of Elias Kingston or Cutler, you got an easy time figuring out if they've been brought back from a previous show. But with a generic monster type as Alien, it's not easy pinpointing whether it's an older monster reimagined or just a coincidence. I mean, there have been a lot of reused monster ideas in the older series. I'm not saying this as any sort of complaint, I'm just informing you that I have no idea if this is a reused monster. It's actually interesting that the gang are taken to Area 53, because it's 2 more secret than Area 51.
I think you passed Area 51.
Oh, yes. We're taking you to Area 53. That's 2 more secret than Area 51.
Which to me implies that the government does believe in extraterrestrials. It doesn't mean they exist, but I'd love it if they were at least a chance of them existing on the show. I mean, some of the most interesting Scooby-Doo cases did involve real monsters, like in Zombie Island. Of course, the monster isn't real, and is revealed to be General Stahl, who, may I point out, has the best name, because I think that's almost what he was trying to do, you know? Stall the shutting down of his base in order to get better equipment. This episode, Daphne didn't really have this weird shtick, although her believing in aliens was meant to be that. But I find that less weird than hand puppets. Also, hilariously, some of the fans have been calling these Daphneisms. I am definitely a fan of referring to those as such. Definitely a great episode, if only for the joke towards the beginning of the episode with Scooby and Shaggy.
Whose idea was that?
Not my idea.
That was a bad idea.
Terrible idea.
There were plenty of other great comedy moments, but I'm going to leave those for you to discover. I will say that I thought this episode, at first glance, was going to feature Space Kook, and it would have been so awesome if he had appeared. But maybe he'll come later down the line. I know he at least appears in the opening sequence, so I still have hope. Now that's been my review of episode 12. Now, excuse me while I go back and watch episode 11, because somehow I skipped that one. Thanks for watching and take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout for a Be Cool Scooby-Doo review. Last night's episode was a perfect Halloween episode. To be fair, many episodes in the Scooby-Doo franchise would be appropriate for Halloween, but this one involved a spooky mansion and a ghost, so, you know, it fits. Now, we learned in this episode that after saving the life of William Lutz, Scooby-Doo was apparently included in the rich man's will, and thus travels to his mansion for the reading of said will. However, it turns out there's a phantom roaming around, scaring away the other people in the will. The premise of Scooby-Doo inheriting a house is somewhat similar to when Shaggy himself inherits a house from his uncle in the movie Scooby-Doo Meets the Boo Brothers, or him inheriting another house from another uncle, and Shaggy and Scooby-Doo get a clue. Now, as for the Phantom in this episode, I did not even need to check to see if this was a monster from the 1969 series. I knew it instantly, and it had me actually excited, despite not being my #1 favorite monster. So obviously the two Phantoms from this episode are a reimagining of the Green Ghost from the Scooby-Doo Where Are You episode, A Night of Fright is No Delight. In the end, it's revealed that the identity of these two ghosts are the twins Ruby and Trudy Lutz. Amazingly enough, their last name seems to be a reference to two of the writers from the original episode, Joe Ruby and Bill Lutz. Heck, the character Casper Cosgood, who vanishes and reappears creepily in this episode, is actually from the original 1969 episode as well. In that episode, he is called Cosgood Creeps, and is actually the villain behind the mask. So for us veteran fans, this may have been an attempt at tricking us up. I mean, who would you suspect more? Two little girls, or a character who was the villain in the original episode? This was an outstanding episode, not only for bringing back the Green Ghost, but also for the little subtle references scattered throughout the episode. Now I'm starting to wonder if I've missed some in the past several episodes. High time I go back and rewatch them, I guess. Speaking of references to the 1969 series, the gang all jump on Velma repeatedly in this episode and ride her around. While some of you might think that's just some random gag they threw in, is actually a callback to the original cartoon, where sometimes they'd all pile on top of Velma and ride her around. Except this time she points out how dumb that idea is, considering how small she is.
Seriously, is no one going to even address the whole sudden everyone jump on Velma escape plan? I'm clearly the smallest, least athletic one here.
I'm sorry, you did what now, Velma?
I do so love it when the show isn't afraid of poking fun at its history. And of course, how could I forget some of the funny moments during this episode, such as the Daphneism this time, trying to turn the mystery into a slumber party.
Wait a minute. 20 questions. A slumber party classic.
Daff, I don't think we have time for...
Was there cabbage involved?
Not the best one we've seen in this series so far, but it still got some chuckles out of me. Especially when she mimes Star Wars, but the gang can't figure it out. Also, there's the idea of a dude pretending to be a cat. A moment that is not only funny, but also bordering on creepy. Seriously, feel free to dress up as a cat if that's your thing, but let's not pretend it's not at least somewhat creepy. Well then, that's been my review of the latest episode of Be Cool Scooby-Doo. Before I end today's video, I wanted to briefly plug a recent video I made listing 3 ways the Teen Titans cartoon could return. So if you could take a look at that video, I would appreciate it. Well, that wraps everything up. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you tomorrow for more Cartoon Hangout. Take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout for a long-awaited Be Cool Scooby-Doo review. The reason this review is going up so late after episode 13 is because it was only released on iTunes and then quickly removed. So if the folks behind the show ask me to take down this review, I'll probably have to. Until then, let's talk about episode 14. Episode 14, titled, If You Can't Scooby-Doo the Time, Don't Scooby-Doo the Crime, involves Fred and the gang traveling to the Vault, an impenetrable prison that is fixing to be shut down and I guess turned into a haunted island prison, if it weren't for the ghost of Steel and Stan haunting the place. Now, as far as I'm aware, Steel and Stan is not a reimagining of any past villain. I would check a site that I've been using to scroll through every Scooby-Doo villain, but I keep getting attacked with malware from it, so if you lords and ladies want to tackle this one for me, be my guest. At the end of the episode, the ghost is revealed to actually be Steel and Stan. Didn't see that one coming, and I think that's kind of brilliant. At least, you know, for a Scooby-Doo show. I can't recall how often a villain turns out to be themselves, but it can't be that often. Steel and Stan turned out to be innocent, and was actually pretending to be a ghost in order to get access to the warden's safe, who had proof of that. Now, I'll be honest, after waiting for nearly a month for this episode to come out, and even then I had to track it down, it really didn't live up to the hype I was coming off of episode 13. It's by no means a terrible episode, but it just wasn't as good as the last episode. There are some notable moments though. Throughout the episode, Fred constantly accuses Shaggy of eating his sandwich, but it ends up being Daphne who had taken it, and she had become so convinced it was Shaggy too. This probably isn't going to win over Daphne's haters anytime soon though. The other moment was an Easter egg briefly seen at the beginning when the gang was being x-rayed, and they used a retro scan that shows off their original designs. That's a nice nod to us older fans, Be Cool Scooby-Doo. Anyway, that's my review of the latest episode of Be Cool Scooby-Doo. I wanted to get this review out as soon as possible, considering tonight we'll finally be getting a brand new episode of the series. It's been a while since I did a review, so hopefully I can get back into the habit soon. Thanks for watching, and take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout for a Christmas themed Be Cool Scooby-Doo review. Originally this episode was meant to air on November 30th, but I guess they wanted it to be in December because of its Christmas theme. Either way, I'm happy I finally got a chance to watch the episode. So in this episode, Scary Christmas, the gang visit Rockwellville because Fred wants to solve a Christmas mystery, but all he gets is a pterodactyl. We also learn that it's Daphne's birthday in this episode, in what is probably the second emotional moment in the show to date, right up there with episode 11.
Growing up, I never had a birthday party. It was always overshadowed by Christmas.
Of course, that ends up being this episode's Daphneism, as you can imagine. It was fairly amusing, although the fact that her birthday was always overshadowed by Christmas kinda makes it a little melancholic too. The monster of this episode is the pterodactyl, which was specific enough for me to easily find the monster's reimagining, namely the pterodactyl ghost from the Scooby-Doo show episode Hang In There Scooby-Doo, a monster who also appeared in the live-action Scooby-Doo movies. There's also the small chance the monster is a reimagining of the pterodactyl that appeared in the children's book Scooby-Doo and You, The Case of the Terrifying Pterodactyl, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say I doubt that. Instead of the monster being Johnny, like the classic was, it turns out to be David, who had hidden a pterodactyl egg in one of the presents, and because he couldn't figure out which it was, he decided to steal the entire tree. Hands down, one of the most complicated plots for something as simple as stealing an egg. This was actually a fairly good episode with quite a few funny moments, such as Shaggy and Scooby-Doo running on a treadmill to power the Mystery Machine.
So, Scoob, do you think these are the strangest events Velma's ever willingly participated in?
The day is young.
Or Fred scheduling when he'd have an epiphany, so some guy could shine a spotlight on him and play music.
Where are we going?
To save Christmas.
Oh, I missed the epiphany, didn't I?
It's okay, George. I improvised.
I was totally epiffed.
Similar to how Daphne's birthday was overshadowed by Christmas, I feel like her Daphneism was a bit overshadowed by the sad reality of her childhood. Not that some of her moments in the episode weren't funny, but I think Fred wins out for his running gag. I do think it would have been cooler to have an actual Christmas-related villain, maybe an evil Santa, but I think that's what made the episode funnier due to Fred constantly trying to drop the current mystery for something more Christmassy. Since it's the season of Christmas, I think we should all take a brief moment to thank the creators behind the show for all their hard work making it. They got a lot of flack for the cartoon's different art style, but I think the show has turned out great, and possibly changed quite a few minds, as I can personally attest to having witnessed. So thanks, Be Cool Scooby-Doo team, you guys and gals are doing a fantastic job. From all of us here at Cartoon Hangout, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. That's my review. Thanks for watching, and I hope everyone has a great Christmas or whatever holiday you celebrate. Take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. And today that means a brand new episode of Be Cool Scooby-Doo, which I am excited to review again because it's been a long time since we saw a new episode. Not sure what was the hold up, but at least it's here now. Gonna have to try to get back into the groove of things though. Alright, so episode 16, Gremlin on a Plane, takes us up into the skies on Air Gigantica as the gang discover yet another of Daphne's hobbies. Planes.
It dwarves the Antonov 225, which is yet another arcane aviation reference that demonstrates what to you must seem like my sudden, inexplicable expertise on the subject.
I don't think this marks the first time a Daphneism has been useful in an episode, but I am definitely on board with the idea of future ones being that way. Get it? I said on board. Because the episode takes place on a plane?
Sorry.
The villain this time around is your terror of the skies, Gremlins. As, you know, the title of the episode suggests. After doing some digging, it was fairly easy to find the previous Scooby-Doo villain this is probably reimagining, namely the Gremlin from the new Scooby and Scrappy-Doo show episode, The Fall Dog. In that episode, the Gremlin was messing with a car, not a plane though. It could be possible it's a coincidence, but I did spot an Easter egg to the older episode. Now, spoiler alert, but the Gremlin turns out to be Egg Johnson, who is jealous that his designs were improved upon by his boss. Throughout the episode, his boss, Big Earl, pretty much calls him every name he can think of besides his actual name. He doesn't discriminate and does the same to the old Scooby Gang, too. One of the names he mistakenly calls Ed is Mickey. In The Fall Dog, that ended up being the guy underneath the mask. If that's a coincidence, then I'll eat a hat. I won't actually eat a hat. But you probably want to know what I thought of the episode. Don't worry, I'm getting there. I have a process. Now, as for the episode's choice of monster, years ago I may have said it was lazy, but when was the last time you saw a gremlin attacking a plane in a cartoon in the past decade? Probably never. Back in the day, I remember seeing a lot of cartoons have at least one gremlin episode. I think the most notable example I saw as a kid was a Looney Tunes episode. Either way, this was a fairly simple monster concept, although it has a nice design that does manage to set itself apart from the gremlins I remember as a kid. This isn't me ragging on the show, by the way. I still enjoyed the antics the gremlin got up to. Now, it wasn't too hard to figure out who the bad guy was, but honestly, I wasn't even thinking about who the person under the mask was right up until the very end. I didn't even connect the dots from the clothes left behind to Ed Johnson due to Big Earl stating that all of his workers wear them. Of course, I'm also writing this review at 3 in the morning, so my inner Sherlock Holmes isn't exactly awake yet. Things would be easier if I just gave number scores, wouldn't they? But no, I have to try to explain myself as best I can. So here goes. In the end, I think this was a decent episode. Not the greatest monster, although it does have a nice design. And the episode did offer up a few laughs here and there, such as the pilot with the fear of heights, or Big Earl forgetting names, even if that one wore old a little quickly. I'm also happy to see Daphne getting a bit more character depth, as weird as that may be to say about a franchise like Scooby-Doo. Because early on, people had her pegged as the idiot, or the scatterbrain klutz. And yeah, there is some validity to those names, as Daphne has been dumbed down some in this newest incarnation. But I think the past several episodes have shown that while she may not be the smartest person in the group, she does bring something to the table, which takes the form of odd hobbies that sometimes distracts from or helps the case. And that's been my review of Gremlins on a Plane. If I happen to miss something or there's something I need to further elaborate on, please let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to explain. If you enjoyed this review, please consider leaving a like or subscribing for more Cartoon Hangout reviews. Also, if you're really enjoying Be Cool Scooby-Doo, try sending some love to the writers and various others who work on the show. They deserve it. Thanks for watching, and take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. In this Sunday's brand new episode, Sorcerer Snack Scare, the gang investigate a snack factory involving a sorcerer's curse. This episode, guys, this freaking amazing episode. I think this was probably the best episode of the show so far, and I am 100% fully prepared to admit nostalgia may play a hand in that statement. What's one thing that's been oddly absent from this Scooby-Doo show? Scooby Snacks, right? Well, as you may have noticed if you watched this episode, it had quite a lot of fun poking fun at the idea of Scooby and Shaggy being bribed to do things for snacks. And much like the episode that had Velma questioning why they rode on her, much like they do sometimes in the original series, Daphne ends up being the de facto voice of reason as to how bad it was to bribe their friends.
I mean, this isn't even normal wrongness. This is a whole new level of wrongness that is beyond all previous wrongnesses.
Of course, I was thinking at the time, shut up, Daphne. Scooby Snacks are an icon. No offense to Daphne, though. Anyway, I was laughing my butt off whenever Fred was abusing his power with the Sorcerer Snacks.
Like we'd carry you anywhere for those snacks.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Or when Velma experimented with what they do for them.
For 3 snacks, would you do it wearing wigs?
Right, nobody move! We've got 3 snacks in our system and we're looking for clues!
We're wigging out.
It was perfect in every way. I really do like that the show isn't afraid to just sort of play around with the usual Scooby-Doo tropes. And you have to admit, the bribery thing does seem pretty sleazy when you think about it, but you never really thought much about it as a kid. The best moment comes at the end of the episode, when Shaggy and Scooby basically reveal that they're getting fed to do things that they'd have to do anyway.
Like, can you believe it? Fred's gonna give us Scooby snacks to do things we always have to do anyway.
Yeah. Sucker.
Those two are smarter than they look. The monster of this episode is the titular Sorcerer, who's based off Pietro, the puppet master from the Scooby-Doo Where Are You episode The Backstage Rage. I didn't even have to do research to find that out, because apparently the Scooby-Doo Wikia is just fine with doing my job. Normally I'd look through every Scooby-Doo villain and find the most likely candidate, and I doubt I'd have figured this one out, because I would be looking for a mage or something and not the guy under the mask. Who does actually look like a young Pietro, actually. Oh yeah, the guy under the mask is Piero. You took the T out of his name. I see what you did there, writers. Who actually wrote this episode? Let me see. Josie Campbell and Marley Halpern Grazier, according to the Scooby-Doo Wikia and most likely Wikipedia. Well, if you're the ones responsible for bringing us the origins for Scooby Snacks, I officially love you. Although Scooby-Doo Wikia also says John Colton Berry was the one with the plans for the Scooby Snacks origin. No citations, of course, so let me know if that's true, because then I also love you. I'm getting creepy. I'm sorry. And yes, I am aware there was a cameo of the Scooby Snacks in the episode All Paws on Deck, but apparently that was just that. A nice little Easter egg. Speaking of John Colton Berry, he had something to say about people calling Daphne dumb, and he gave me permission to share that with you. I could paraphrase it because it's long, but I'm going to read the whole thing if that's okay. I'd just like to say this concerning the whole Daphne being dumbed down thing in the series, because I've heard this a few times and it kind of bugs me. She is in no way dumb in this show. She's smart, but she's also wildly eccentric and creative. She doesn't care what anyone thinks about her. She's adventurous, funny, positive, empathic, and she dances to her own drummer. Built into her is a little wide-eyed innocence and childlike wonder, but that's to do with her sheltered upbringing, like Rapunzel in Tangled, who also isn't dumb, an open-minded personality and not a reflection of her intelligence. Zach and I decided when we were reimagining the characters that for Daphne and Velma, nothing of importance or good about their personalities or strengths or weaknesses will have anything to do with their gender. In a couple episodes, Daphne is complimented by men about her looks, and she's quick to deflect or make a little self-deprecating joke, because she's really not superficial and doesn't care about that stuff. Nothing she says or does has anything to do with the fact that she's a woman. Same with Velma. At the same time, all of the characters are human and flawed. They all have their blind spots and frustrations and unique pathologies that might make any one of them appear kind of dumb at certain moments. But when you're dealing with comedy, especially sitcom-type comedy, all characters tend to have their dumb or silly moments. Take Friends or Frasier or any show, and I'm sure every main character has scenes or moments when they look foolish or dense or downright stupid. It's the nature of comedy. But they appear dumb, usually in the character's own unique way because of who they are. Just like in real life, where we all have our dumb moments. Daphne is no different. She's just an oddball. I think a lot of people can relate. Thanks for letting me get my 2 cents in. I'm actually glad he commented with his 2 cents, because it was definitely something we all needed to hear. Even I've been guilty of describing Daphne as dumbed down, and I'm man enough to admit that that's not very fair to the character or the writers, and that is, well, it's untrue. Just like John Barry said, having dumb moments doesn't mean you are dumb. I once knew a guy in high school who I legitimately believed could be the next Steve Jobs, but he would occasionally have these moments that, if you took them out of context, would make you think he was kind of stupid. Daphne, in this series, is probably my favorite character, which isn't something I've ever been able to say about any particular iteration of her in the past. It's normally been like Shaggy or Scooby. with maybe the exception of Mystery Incorporated. She was pretty good in that show. The thing is, I kind of applaud the writers of the show for deciding that nothing good or bad about Daphne or Velma would be tied to being women. Honestly, the same is probably true of the males in the show. Their flaws and strengths have nothing to do with their gender. And in the past, Daphne was pretty much always the fashion guru, the one afraid to get her dress dirty or break a nail. Now, that's not criticism of past writers, or of the character, or even that type of character. I'm not that kind of person, because it worked for Daphne. Fred was a leader, Velma was a genius, Scooby and Shaggy were the cowardly clowns, and Daphne was the really girly character. Yes, more recent shows have sort of rounded her out a bit, but it's refreshing to see the writers of Be Cool Scooby-Doo try to do a little bit more with her than most. Well, that was a decent-sized rant about Daphne that didn't have much to do with her role in this episode. My bad. But I just really appreciate the crew of the show taking the time to stop by and offer up some information on what they're going for on the show. I know I say a lot of good things about this show, but it's because it's that good, in my personal opinion. I'm personally not really looking forward to the day a bad episode comes around. It would be like scolding your favorite child or your favorite pet. Not looking forward to that day. Anyway, yeah, that's my review of this episode. I'm officially marking this as my favorite episode, and if you worked on this episode, well, you did a good job. You get a gold sticker from me. This show really shines even more when the writers decide to poke fun at staples of the franchise. And at this point in history, that's a fairly smart move to make. Usually the shows take themselves seriously. Well, I mean, as much as a mystery comedy series like Scooby-Doo can, of course. So I definitely hope to see more episodes like this. And as one fan said in the comments of a previous episode, now we just need an origin story for the mystery van. Oh, and I know I've said this before, and I doubt it'll happen, but can we see some Hex Girls? They weren't a part of the original series, I know, which this show is reimagining, but if you get the person who designed this character to do their designs, I will name my children after you. I will even just accept concept art. Like you go to my Twitter and you redesign the Hex Girls and you send it to me on Twitter, and I'll still name my children after you. Yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching and take care. Hello, lords and ladies. Welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. Episode 18, Saga of the Swamp Beast, takes us to my home state of Louisiana for a mystery involving a terrifying swamp monster. Because what else would be the monster in Louisiana? A gator? That's already been done. But things are complicated when Fred keeps being shown up by an alligator detective. That story just writes itself, by the way. Poor Fred just never seems to catch a break.
No offense, but you kids may be out of your league. Leave the mystery solver to the professional, Chomps the Gator.
I knew this episode was probably going to be good when only a minute into the episode I was already laughing. What was I laughing at? Well, Daphne, of course, who else? The camera had barely panned over to reveal her vampire cosplay before I was pausing the show to laugh my head off. The look on Fred's face here says it all. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say this is my favorite Daphneism, but Daphne does certainly look good as one of the undead. Plus, it doesn't hurt that the amazing Grey Delisle has a voice to pull off a more macabre Daphne.
But fear not, my black swans. Though I've become slave to the thirst, you shall be spared the dragon's crimson dance.
She did voice Azula from Avatar: Last Airbender, after all. Although I am from Louisiana, I don't often take part in many traditional Louisianian traditions. I do partake in some gumbo from time to time, though. Despite all that, I really love that the setting of this episode was good old Louisiana. I really wish more cartoons or fiction in general took place here. There's a lot of lore and history to be taken advantage of. The Banicular cartoon knows what I'm talking about. That show is set here too, if I remember. But while this episode is set here in Louisiana, I don't really know if it took such great advantage of the setting. I mean, yeah, there's a swamp monster, and delicious Louisiana cuisine, and a gator who somehow is both a detective and possibly a real estate agent, and even a Mardi Gras parade during the chase scene. But I just felt like it could have been a bit more. I do appreciate the gesture of the creator of the show setting the episode in my home state, because God knows not many other shows do. We get passed up for New York or California. Blech. As for the swamp monster, I couldn't find anything it was maybe based off of. There are some monsters with similar designs, but they weren't swamp based. It's possible this is an original creation for the show, which surprised me considering how old the Scooby-Doo franchise is and how many times they visited Louisiana in the past. Yet they've never done a swamp monster before. The monster's design really seemed familiar, so I don't know if I've seen it in an earlier episode or what. While this show is definitely a bit more comedic than past narrations, as I have said before, and as the creators of the show have said before, even I was surprised when things like Velma rocketing off into the sky happened. And this is coming from a show that regularly has Scooby and Shaggy doing some outlandish things, such as running across water. I'm pointing it out because it just had me laughing really hard for no particular reason other than being surprised it was how Velma got away from the monster. The rest of the episode follows as one would expect. The gang do some sleuthing, a chase scene with incredible music ensues. What is that song, by the way? If anybody knows, leave a comment below. And they capture the monster. The monster ended up being Dwayne, aka the Gentleman Bandit. This caught my attention, mostly due to an earlier episode being referenced as sort of like his backstory. Namely, the first episode, as Dwayne had attended the Kingston University, even had a ring, actually. And in the episode, Scooby and Shaggy even mentioned Mitch from that episode, too. If I remember correctly, he was the villain of that episode. So that was a nice little throwback to that episode. Be Cool Scooby-Doo is not really continuity heavy like its predecessor, Mystery Incorporated, was, but I really do enjoy the little small references here and there from time to time. It makes the show feel like it's a living, breathing world, and their adventures don't take place in a vacuum every week like some iterations have treated it in the past. All in all, I'd say this was a decently entertaining episode. To compare it to last week's, I'd say it's not quite as good, but you'll get plenty of laughs from it, and if you're a Louisianian like me, you'll love the various shout-outs to our culture. The Daphneism was really funny, as were the various hijinks the gang got up to. I especially loved Scooby and Shaggy partaking in the thinly veiled parody of the Ghost Reaper Pepper. As for Fred this episode, I didn't really find his competition with the Gator all that amusing, more annoying than anything. I think I felt that way because we've already had Fred in the show in competition with others who weren't good at sleuthing, and this time it wasn't even a person. And in the past episodes, I'm not sure if it's happened once or maybe twice, but they weren't good at sleuthing, but they still showed him up. So we've already seen that before, so it didn't really, interest me this time. So that's my review of Saga of the Swamp Beast. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like. If you want to share your thoughts on this episode as well, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. Sorry this review is up so late, and take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. This Sunday's brand new episode, Be Cold Scooby-Doo, almost seems like it could have been a Christmas themed episode too. I guess just because it has snow doesn't mean it has to be Christmas though. Of course, like any trip the Scooby Gang take, they were bound to run into a mystery. Or as Fred so accurately puts it, a winter wonderland mystery. See, a snowman monster has been terrifying the poor tourists of Sunnyside Lodge and interrupting Shaggy's first experience with snow. Wait, his first? What about the episode Scary Christmas? That probably takes place before that episode. Not sure who is in charge of episode releases, but maybe they should step their game up. Just a suggestion, of course. The snow monster in this episode seems to be somewhat based off the snow creature from the What's New Scooby-Doo episode, There's No Creature Like Snow Creature. In that episode, the man in control of the monster was a snowboarder, and so was Heidi-Ho Swift in this episode. It's also possible the premise of this episode comes from the children's book Scooby-Doo and the Snow Monster. It also takes place on a ski resort and involves a snow monster running around. Of all the various snow monster designs I've seen, I really like this one. It's far more creepy than others, and even slightly looks like it came from Mystery Incorporated, to be honest. From its thin branch arms, its crooked carrot nose, ripped scarf, to its fierce blue eyes. Not to say the other monsters that have appeared previously weren't creepy, but this one felt doubly so. And keep in mind, I don't feel the show is ever trying to truly be scary. The Scooby franchise has, to me, come off more creepy, or spoopy, as the kids say these days. Not counting things like Zombie Island, which terrified and excited me as a child. Fun thought. Mystery Incorporated really leaned hard into the mystery aspect of the franchise, right? What if after Be Cool Scooby-Doo, we got an honest-to-goodness scary iteration? Scary on the same level as Zombie Island. That would be really cool. I don't see it happening, but that's just my 2 cents. Now, while I did end up enjoying this episode, there were some moments that fell flat for me. Speak of the devil. The running gag of this episode was the gang falling on snow. It was somewhat funny at first, but then it got pretty old. Luckily, this hasn't happened that often in the series so far. I remember an older episode where I mentioned the running gag wore out its welcome quickly. My memory's a bit fuzzy, so feel free to leave that video in the comments if you remember which one it was. But there are quite a few moments in this episode that were great, far outweighing that one complaint I had. It's not as funny as her previous Daphne-isms, but I dare you to watch this episode not giggle just a little at Daphne's repeated attempts to get revenge on Fred for something he did as a child.
Keep your eyes open.
I don't see anything out of the ordinary. Do you?
Well, that snowball you're holding certainly isn't unexpected.
Nothing!
Danger radar.
Your time's coming, Buster.
The fact she still had a grudge against him is hilarious and just a little bit cute. And the fun part of this episode's Daphneism was even Fred got to play some part in it with his danger radar. I will admit to being slightly annoyed when Daphne took the chance to pelt him with a snowball when they were being chased, but considering it did lead to the monster being caught, I guess I'll give it a pass. And going off on a design tangent, I really like the outfits the characters wore. I know it's random to point out, but whoever designed the winter versions of the Scooby Gang's outfits needs to be congratulated. They just looked really nice. I especially like Daphne's because it just really seems like something she'd wear. It fits her to a T. And I don't know what was up with Fred's headgear, but it had me smiling at how stupid he looked. In a good way, of course. Basically, it was just an all-around good episode. An episode you should watch with some hot chocolate or something similar. Even the chase music was on point this episode, which fit the theme of winter. I would love to know if these are pre-existing songs or ones created for the show, because Shazam isn't helping me out here. Maybe we can get a Be Cool Scooby-Doo OST or something. Anyway, good episode. That's all I have to say, but if I missed something, let me know, and I'll elaborate on it. Thanks for watching, and take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. If I'm lucky, this video is going up mostly on time Monday, which is when I'm working on it. But if not, oh well. Episode 20, Giant Problems, has our lovable Scooby Gang visiting the Emerald Isle of Ireland because Daphne has discovered she's 1/16 Irish and her family owns a castle. I wish I had those kind of problems. If this concept seems familiar, it's because you're most likely thinking of the movie Scooby-Doo and the Loch Ness Monster, except in that movie Daphne had Scottish ancestors, not Irish. If you had thought they'd visited Ireland in that movie, don't worry, I initially confused Scotland and Ireland too, and probably ended up offending my own ancestors in the process. Ireland is visited in the 2 Scooby-Doo series, Laugh Olympics, and the second Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo series. The episodes The Grand Canyon in Ireland and Scooby's Luck of the Irish respectively. The monster this time around is a giant.
We're gonna need some bigger weapons of legend.
Yep, a giant. I think part of the fun of watching Scooby-Doo is figuring out how the monster of the week is going to get rationalized. Sure, when it's just a human-sized monster, you might say, just a guy in a mask. But when the monster is employing what looks like magic, a la the Sorcerer from Sorcerer Snack Scare, or in this case, is a giant, you could be forgiven for being slightly confused. Maybe I'm just a bit dumb, but I didn't even begin to think this was some mechanized construct. And yet it's not as if this hasn't been done before in older Scooby series, so I probably don't have much of an excuse for not thinking of that. I will admit to hoping it was an actual giant. I think other than Mystery Incorporated, there's not been a Scooby-Doo series that has mixed fake monsters with legitimate real ones together in the same series. It's typically been one or the other. Just like in the 80s, the Scooby series introduced real monsters a little bit, so. Now, even though a giant is certainly not high up in terms of original monsters on my list, I still very much enjoyed this use of the creature. I think part of that can be chalked up to hoping it was a real monster, but the rest has to be how the gang interacted with the construct. Like Fred dressing up as a knight to take him down, or, my absolute favorite, actually turning the Mystery Machine into an honest-to-goodness mech, straight out of the Power Rangers or something.
What kind of modification?
That moment almost cemented this episode as my new favorite Be Cool Scooby-Doo episode, but that honor still falls to Sorcerer Snack Scare. I will award this episode second favorite, though. Some other highlights were Daphne's latest Daphneism, using an Irish accent.
This land was once home to all manner of creatures. Fairies, leprechauns, giants. Aye.
Is that... are you... Nah.
Which could have gotten old if it weren't for how good Daphne sounded with one. Or Scooby and Shaggy actually running away from food for once. Which by itself wouldn't have been that funny, besides them doing the opposite of what they do in every episode. But the fact it was done Seuss style made it even better.
Try them dressed up as a knight.
No, we'll just put up a bigger fight.
I don't see why we must quarrel.
We don't like crewmates.
We don't like foul.
The only joke I didn't think was that funny was Velma not understanding anyone speaking with an Irish accent. Well, actually, it started off not amusing me, then it was kind of funny, and then it went back to not being funny. It basically flip-flopped around during the episode. I suppose that's better, in theory, than it just not being funny at all, but yeah. I think the funniest it got for me was this moment here.
Velma, what are you doing?
What?
She asked, what are you doing?
Daphne, you have chosen the worst time to become a hibernophile.
And I think that's because Fred has to explain it, and since he's far away, that was kind of amusing for me. But what of the giant itself? What possible older monster could this one be inspired from? I don't know. I looked through all of the Scooby monsters I could find and didn't see anything that resembled the giant. There were giant monsters, but not a specific giant with this motive. Now, so if any of you Scooby sleuths know of a monster this could be based on, let me know in the comments below. For now, I'm just going to claim it's original to the series. If there's one thing I enjoy about this newest incarnation of Scooby-Doo, it's that it either pokes fun at typical Scooby tropes or it shakes things up, as I've explained in previous reviews. Now, even though this one was a small part of the episode, I like that the gang apparently got Colin's plan wrong. Velma even misinterprets it as the usual, I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids line. And we get no actual explanation for what Colin describes as a much more sinister plan. So basically what I'm saying is this was a pretty great episode. The Velma jerks were very hit or miss with me, but everything else landed. And even though I wasn't super thrilled to have an Ireland episode, I actually didn't think it was going to be that interesting, it had some really funny moments throughout, which I've already given examples of. And that's my review. And if you enjoyed it, consider leaving a like or subscribing for more Cartoon Hangout reviews. Thanks for watching, and Slán Lat. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon, and today that's a new review of Be Cool Scooby-Doo. Episode 21, Eating Crow takes the gang to a small town, more specifically 2 farms, being terrorized by a living scarecrow. Throughout the episode, we also get to see another member of the Scooby Gang be romantically interested in a character, and that would be our poor Fred, who continually attempts to impress Beth with his mystery-solving abilities. Of course, as anyone could tell you, trying to do something for other people will make you fail, even if you're good at that particular something. Still, I always do enjoy a little bit of romance subplot in my Scooby-Doo show. I mean, back in the day, I was a huge Fred and Daphne shipper. With these versions of the characters, though, not so much. Obviously, that's not a big part of this iteration, so we don't really see much of it in this episode, despite it being most of what Fred does in the episode. The most notable and funny moment of Fred's hang-up was when they first met. It felt like it was meant to play on similar moments in other shows where it zooms in all romantic-like, only for the girl to be weirded out. In this iteration of the show, as I've said before, all of the characters generally have something to do. Daphne has her isms, and the other characters have, well, they have something going on. In this episode, Velma had her allergies. Daphne wanted an animal companion like Scooby, and we already talked about Fred's. Now, I wasn't particularly fond of Velma's allergies because it was mostly annoying seeing her sneeze all over the place. Sure, it did end up connecting the contradictory clues together by the episode's end, but I'm not even sure how they figured that out in the first place. Basically, I think they could have toned down her allergies and still pieced together the clues. The Daphneism this time around also wasn't my all-time favorite either. It started off as a nice little exploration of her childhood and how she never really had a friend, let alone an animal friend like Shaggy had Scooby, but then it got tiresome. Personally, I feel it would have been better to focus on a single animal instead of the several she ended up lugging around with her, but that's just me. Actually, now that I say it, this whole episode felt overall meh to me. I won't go so far as to say it was poorly written or bad, because most of my hang-ups with it can be chalked up to personal preference. There were some good moments though, as I always try to find no matter what. First off, the chase music was really great. I could see myself listening to that in my car any day. I think the song was Old Stomping Grounds. And second, I liked how there were two villains this time around, both completely oblivious to the other. They also ended up not being taken to jail, which is a twist I haven't seen in a long time on Scooby-Doo. Of course, this isn't a Cartoon Hangout review without discussing the monster of the week, the Scarecrow. Now, recently one of the writers of the show, John Barry, explained that most of the monsters are not based on any specific previous monsters, except for ones like the Ghost of Elias Kingston, which kind of calls into question the part of my review where I try to decipher what monster they're reimagining. Despite all that, I think I'm still going to draw comparisons because, quite frankly, it's fun to research. Now, this week's monster is definitely not truly based on any past Scooby-Doo villain because the living Scarecrow can be added to the list of commonly used monster designs. Heck, even Goosebumps did it. Still, there have been quite a few different Scarecrows in the Scooby-Doo franchise, most notably the Scarecrow from the new Scooby-Doo movies, the Frickert Fracas. And that's been my review. Not the greatest or worst episode of Be Cool Scooby-Doo, but I was certainly left feeling very lukewarm about it. There was just one other fun moment from the episode I'd forgotten to mention, so let me just show it.
Tin Man, there he is! Like, where have you been, Scarecrow?
Hello, Lellow Road, follow?
This was definitely the biggest highlight of the episode, mostly for reasons I can't get into right now. But what did you think of this episode? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. Remember, for a chance to win Be Cool Scooby-Doo Season 1 Part 1, be sure to leave a comment on every Scooby-Doo related video this month. Now on to the review. It's been an agonizing year-long wait for more Be Cool Scooby-Doo episodes, and without much to go on, one can only really blame Cartoon Network, or at least someone there, for not even bothering to air any reruns of the show to keep it alive. But with new episodes allegedly airing next month, now is the perfect time in my opinion to start out my reviews again. Thanks in part to the help of the UK fandom, who apparently got these episodes months ago. At least the UK's Cartoon Network is doing some good work. Anyway, enough of that, let's actually talk about episode 22, I, Scooby-Dooby Do. As the date got closer to my review of this episode, I was nervous that maybe I'd changed my mind a little on this series, especially after spending the past several months in the 1969 series. But this episode alleviated any concerns I had fabricated. Set during the gang's friend's wedding, they now have to help keep the wedding going and stop the creepy Cliff Bride from ruining their friend's special day. And it's non-stop hilarious from start to finish. I'd actually forgotten how good the comedy was in this show, and it's definitely much different from the more toned-down comedy found in its 1969 counterpart. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. most of the humor really worked for the episode, from Shaggy's anxiety about his best man speech.
Does this... am I?
You're giving your speech.
To Scooby being ordained.
When were you going to tell me about this?
Me?
You're the wedding expert. Why do you think Nate and Kimmy asked you to officiate this ceremony?
I'm ordained.
I think the only thing that may not work for folks is Velma and her stomping bit. It reached a whole new level of crazy when she descended a cliff using them, and for me that was too much, but that was, as best I can tell, the only off thing about the episode. The monster for this episode is the Cliff Bride, and while it's been confirmed for me by the writers of the show that not every monster is based on any previous Scooby-Doo monster, I am still going to keep the part of the reviews in where I guess what monster it could be based on. Now, while not a bride, the design does slightly remind me of Alice May from Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, thanks in part to the gauntness of their faces, but that's a pretty thin connection, even I can admit that. There may be another Ghost Bride that I'm not thinking of, but as far as I can tell, there's definitely no other monster Cliff Bride is based on within the Scooby-Doo franchise. And as far as monsters go, I wouldn't call Cliff Bride a brilliant concept, as it's kind of been done before. A wedding goes poorly, the bride dies and or her groom dies, and bing bada boom, she comes back to haunt the living. As the saying goes, been there, done that. However, that's not to say I dislike the monster or anything. I think while the concept itself isn't anything new, when are we gonna get some ghost grooms? The writers still make it work, and a lot of fun is had between the gang and the Cliff Bride. And again, while the idea of two people working together as a monster isn't new, see too many Scooby-Doo examples to list, I loved how it turned out to be the mothers of the bride and groom. Now that's a fun idea. In conclusion, I Scooby-Dooby Do reaffirms my belief that Be Cool Scooby-Doo is one of the best iterations in the franchise, no matter what anyone else thinks. It manages to gracefully, most of the time, balance new and old. It's the modern equivalent to What's New Scooby-Doo, which also saw the gang updated for a new generation, but also was incredibly entertaining and rewarding for the older fans. In this way, it does its job much better than its competition, like Teen Titans Go, which has alienated much of its older fan base, or the Powerpuff Girls or Ben 10, which have in their own ways removed elements that made them popular in their day, or added elements that just don't always work. And those were my thoughts on this episode. What were yours? Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. Another reminder that one comment per video nets you one entry into the giveaway I'm hosting. Check out the announcement video for more information. The gang get a little Mexican in their diet in episode 23 El Bandito, as Fred tricks Scooby and Shaggy into accompanying the rest of them to a Day of the Dead celebration. Now this isn't the first time the Scooby Gang has taken part in the Day of the Dead festivities. That honor goes to the movie The Monster of Mexico, but it certainly is the best, at least compared to that average Scooby-Doo film anyway. I think there's quite a lot to like about this episode personally. Fred has always been the leader, but it almost feels like he takes center stage with his goal of becoming a part of El Bandito's legacy.
If I solve this mystery, I, Fred Jones, will become part of that legend.
It's silly and is played mostly for comedy, but I enjoyed seeing Fred really take charge. I'm a huge proponent of Fred being maybe not the smartest character in the group, but certainly one who can think up crazy plans. Daphne even says as much during her huge uplifting speech when they're about to die. Yes, the gang almost freaking die in this episode. I think this iteration delivers on that front from time to time, though I'd love to see it more often, but that's a topic for another video. Speaking of Daphne, this is largely one of those episodes where her part in it doesn't measure up, especially to other episodes. In fact, I'm fairly confident fans won't really reminisce about her Daphneism in this episode, as it just gets old, and not, haha, that's cute, and then it slowly gets on your nerve. No, it got old from the moment she opened her mouth about her Aunt Cookie.
Hello! Calling all Blakes! Daphne of the Blake clan here! If you want to commune, send me a sign!
I love this more innocent Daphne for sure, but I'm not afraid to point out when it works against her, and this is one of those times. But hey, that's like 1 or 2 misfires out of 23 episodes thus far. That's not bad. Interestingly enough, the episode seems to play on the fact that the gang usually get chased around by the monster to a chase song by cutting the chase short with them being trapped in a mausoleum. It's not this incredibly off-the-wall story choice, as by now we've gotten dozens of episodes and even entire series meant to play on the tropes of the franchise, but it is just a nice little twist that gets a funny comment out of Daphne. So that's something else I appreciate about this episode. Normally this is the part of the video I do some hard-hitting research into what previous monster this new one could be inspired by, but I don't even have to do any of that because I'm fairly certain El Bandito is definitely wholly original to the series. I just think I would remember a Mexican-inspired monster design, and as those goes, it's certainly 1,000 times better than the one from the Monster of Mexico. The rest of the episode plays out much like you'd expect out of a Scooby-Doo episode by now, but it does it really well and most of the comedy is top-notch, except for, once again, Daphne's contribution to the story. Although the speech was really good, but then most of her speeches are. So, that's my review. Once again, another really great episode from the team behind Be Cool Scooby-Doo, but this would not be a Cartoon Hangout if you lords and ladies didn't chime in below with your own opinions on this episode. If you haven't seen it yet, check the description and comments for where to download it. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. We're almost finished with Scooby Month, so be sure to get those comments in on every Scooby-Doo video this month for a chance to win a prize. For more information, click the card in the top right corner of the screen. I'm gonna come right out and say it. I think episode 24, Into the Mouth of Madcap, may have just knocked Sorcerer Snack Scare off its throne for me when it comes to favorite episodes. It's just a totally fun and spooky episode that I was immediately into as soon as I saw there was an evil clown involved.
Is this peer pressure?
In the episode, the gang traveled to a boardwalk carnival of sorts, I guess, which is being terrorized by the evil clown Madcap. He's not a ghost, or a monster, just a serial killer clown. We almost had the gang die last episode, and now the show suddenly hints at one of their villains being a murderer? Dang, Be Cool Scooby-Doo. I approve. As far as evil clowns go, there's probably too many to list from the Scooby-Doo pantheon of monsters and creeps. There's the one from the 1969 series, but there's been a slew of other ones that I won't even begin to name. So this is another instance where I think the clown is original. Speaking of clowns, I think one of the highlights of the episode was Velma's fear of them. It's not often we get any kind of character arc in these solitary episodes, but we get to see Velma overcome that fear she has and kind of save the day. I mean, not really. The humorous part is she didn't even get a chance to step up, mostly just ended up stepping in the way of the oncoming evil clown and causing him to fall over. Still, I think it was an enjoyable and well-written part of the episode. Fun fact, this is not the first series to feature Velma's fear of clowns. I believe it was also first established in the 3rd season episode of What's New Scooby-Doo, A Terrifying Round with a Menacing Clown. So that's a cool little reference for you Scooby addicts. The episode also featured at least a couple of twists on the typical formula, what with one of the suspects not having the best exits after a thinly veiled threat, or Daphne's nephew speaking up and solving the mystery for everyone, which you'd think would be annoying, but I actually thought was really fun. Oh, and the gang not so much splitting up, but leaving Fred in the lurch. That was sad for Fred, but still amusing. All in all, I really loved this episode. It had a really creepy atmosphere about it, and even the, I don't know what to call it, but the coloring of the backgrounds even matched the tone. Shading, coloring, I don't know, but it reminded me of the backgrounds of Mystery Incorporated, how they were saturated with neon or dark greens at times to really drive home the terror. The episode didn't go that far, but it definitely helped sell the murderous clown. And speaking of that clown, I think Madcap is my favorite villain in this new iteration so far. He's just so murderously gleeful, and I love it. Plus the fact that the show not so subtly hinted he's a murderer was a great addition. I like when the villains are truly villainous and not just chasing the gang around. I mean, technically yes, the clown turned out to be Oopsie, who likely wasn't going to murder anyone, but the original Madcap? Now that's a character I wish had actually escaped and come back. Before I forget, because I have done so with other references, this episode also features another throwback to the classic series, when the gang see their original designs in a funhouse mirror. It's a goofy little moment, and the gang react, a little unfortunately, with relief that they don't look like that anymore.
Whew, now that's unsettling.
Like, wow, I'm sure glad we don't look like that.
I'm sure it's just meant to be playful, but it does seem to disrespect Iwao Takamoto. Again, I'm sure there was no harm meant in the joke, and I'm just making too big a deal out of it, but I did want to point that out nonetheless. It also served to show us what the classic would look like if the design stayed 100% the same, but used today's technology to recreate it. And that's pretty stinking cool. Reminded me a little of that Adult Swim Scooby-Doo parody that's on. I can't remember what the name of it is. Anyways, that's all I got to say on the episode. It's great, and you should definitely watch it, and you can. If you go and download it from the site, I'll list in the description. Just make sure to leave a reply on the thread, or else you won't be able to get the links. Once you watch it, let me know what your thoughts on it were. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. I'm getting around to this review rather late in the day, so I'm going to have to make this a rather quick review. I'd rather not, but it's either this or delay today, and I'd rather not have to work on getting 2 reviews up tomorrow. You understand, right? Okay, review time. Episode 25, the Norse case scenario, returns us to your typical Be Cool Scooby-Doo episode. Not that the ones we've been doing aren't typical, but by now we're all used to the writing of the series, and the plot for this one is pretty basic. The gang go camping and run afoul of Viking ghosts. I'm not into Vikings as much, but these are some pretty unique choices for ghosts, and it was fun watching them chase the gang in this episode. I wish more Viking history had been employed besides the runes, but it doesn't harm the story in either way. It's still pretty funny. It just would have been something you'd expect the Velma of old to delve into, even if at times the writers have had her saying incorrect information in the past. My only issue with this episode is that it's hard to figure out what is a clue and what's just being played for laughs, like the birds and the bird watchers not realizing they're around. This was later used as a clue to reveal that the bird watchers weren't really bird watchers and that they were working with the park ranger. But based on the formula for this show, you wouldn't be blamed for just thinking it was a comedic moment and nothing more. That's something I'd love to see worked on in Season 2 or future Scooby-Doo series. Help us viewers out with discerning clues from random comedy bits. Half the fun of the mystery is figuring out the culprit for yourself. Other than that one complaint, the rest of the episode was pretty standard, and that's still pretty fun given the standards for this show were so high. The comedy in the script was tight and flowed really well, with maybe the exception of Fred's part of the episode. He got a little annoying, but parts of his story were still amusing. And those are my brief thoughts. What are yours? Share them with me down below. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. Today is the last day to make sure you have enough entries to guarantee you have enough chances to win the Scooby Month 2017 giveaway, as I'll be announcing the winner tomorrow. Get those comments in and check out the giveaway video for more information if you're confused. I talked about this briefly in my 5 monsters I'd like to see in Be Cool Scooby-Doo video, but the Scooby Gang have done lots of good over the years. From catching crooks to saving the world from zombies, vengeful spirits from beyond the grave, and even evil viruses. Which is why an episode like The People vs. Fred Jones is such an interesting concept, because I think any of us at some point has thought about the legality of a bunch of teens and their dog getting involved in criminal activity. For the most part, that has been ignored outside specific episodes and or series like What's New Scooby-Doo or Mystery Incorporated. Now, we can add this show to the list. In this episode, Fred is arrested on suspicion of not only being the toxic mutant, but every monster they've ever unmasked. Quite an outrageous claim, but it makes the events of the story all the more interesting. Obviously we know that he's innocent, so that does take some of the tension out of the episode. But, like they say, it's all about the journey. Which is actually quite a fun episode. But there are unfortunately some parts I did not enjoy, and we'll get to those in a bit. First off, I think I like Daphne's part in this episode more than anything. I thought it was going to get annoying, but with her constantly playing that lawyer game, but when she started actually spouting out lawyerisms, made that word up myself, it was hilarious. Poor Velma though, she had to cut off her hair. She would get her revenge though. I also dug the setup for the episode where the present events were interrupted periodically for the flashbacks. I know there's a word for this, but I'm blanking on the literary term. Actually, you know what? I think it's just flashbacks. I'm dumb. Anyway, you could claim that that would be the only way to do it, given most times a character is on trial, they rely on flashbacks. But I think it worked. The writers didn't necessarily need to do anything new or put a twist on it. I'm about to sound like a broken record again, but I do have to once again point out that the comedy in this episode was really good. It's been some time since I saw the earlier episodes. I know, I should have prepared for the new episodes by binging the entire season. But I'll hesitantly claim here that I think the show has gotten more funny over the course of season 1. I really don't understand why Cartoon Network is mistreating this show by not even airing reruns of it that often. It's far funnier than Teen Titans Go, that's for sure. although the part where Scooby and Shaggy act like runaway models was a teeny bit similar to TTG's humor, but you could argue it's more like other Scooby iterations too. Anyway, my point is that the show seems to have gotten much better with its humor over time, and I appreciate that. While we're still on the subject of humor, now would be a good time to explain which part of the episode I wasn't a fan of. It's a small part, so it doesn't impact my overall feelings for the episode, and that's namely the DA and him constantly leaving the courtroom only to pop his head back in. It was funny for the first 2 times, then it got really old. By the time he got to this scene, it was already yawn-inducing. So while most of the humor has been great this episode, stuff like this comes off far too spastic. Oddly enough, because the brunt of this episode's plot focused on Fred's court case, it didn't seem like the actual mystery of the episode got much attention. I mean, yeah, it's still there and a part of the episode, which helped get Fred arrested, but there wasn't anything too interesting about the mystery beyond that fact. Even the toxic mutant felt boring, even though the design was a little interesting. Actually, looking at it, I say it does win the most creepiest human design award this season. Most other culprits have monster costumes, while this one is just a mutated human costume. Kinda gross to think about. It's not a bombastic season finale by any means, but it does a good job of wrapping the season up. It gives us another heartfelt moment with the gang giving Fred a pep talk and talking about how he's such a great leader, which I loved, and provides a not often tread upon concept. I think we all can appreciate that. With that, the Season 1 reviews are finished. Even more accurate is that this marks the end of Scooby Month. It's been a lot of fun, even though it's been stressful at times. These reviews should have been done a week ago, leaving time for additional content, but hey, that's me for you. I have a habit of really screwing my schedule up. Even now, it's 2:44 p.m. on the day this review is going up. Either way, I'm glad you were all able to take this fun little journey with me, spending 2 completely different Scooby-Doo series and a top 5. I wanted to do so much more, but I guess I'll have to wait until Scooby Month 2018, am I right? I never thought you lords and ladies would gravitate so much to these Scooby-Doo reviews. Some of them are getting up there in views, the kind of views I used to get, and that's been fun to see. Anyway, enough of the warm fuzzies talks. Share your thoughts on this episode down below.